actively stealing from the starting lineup of Orange Nation. Had to do it. You got to tamper in the portal these days. We just had to get in there, and we saw an opening, and we struck when the iron was hot. With that, we bring in our first guest today. He is Mike McAllister of 24/7 Sports. A wild portal acquisition this morning, Mike. Things move fast, and we snapped you right up. I mean, things were moving quickly.
Yeah, it's been a crazy transfer portal week or couple of days for Syracuse football, for sure.
So, all right, what's going on here? Steve Angeli's on campus. Trevor Pena said, what do we make of this? I could read this in 7 different ways. What's your read on what's going on here?
Well, it's very easy to read into Steve Angeli, and I saw this comment from a lot of fans that basically this must mean that there's some sort of lack of confidence in Ricky Collins. I don't think it has anything to do with that. Listen, Syracuse needed a quarterback once Michael Johnson decided to transfer. They preferred someone with some level of experience, but regardless, their job when they're filling a position is to get the most talented player you possibly can to fill that position. If they believe that that's Steve Angeli, then you get that guy. If that creates a quarterback competition in the fall, so be it. But I don't think you pass on a guy that you think is really talented and good enough to start for you and good enough to win games for you just because you've already previously named the starter, regardless of what you think of that guy. Similar to if you've already got 2 or 3 offensive tackles that you think are really good and Power 4 caliber starters, and then another one comes available and wants to come to your school even though they know there's going to be a competition for the starting job, you don't say, nope, I'm going to go get someone that's definitely a backup so that I don't worry about that competition. So I just take it as Syracuse is trying to get the best quarterback that they can to fill out the quarterback room. Yeah,
because you said it. If this happened at literally any other position, you wouldn't think twice about it. You just that's great. But whenever things are quarterback, it's certainly a different thing. And now, I don't know. What are you expecting? All right, let's say they can get Angeli. How does this affect the finances of it all? Like Ricky Collins wasn't free. Trevor Pena and whatever he was making's out the door. Morad Watson's out the door. Does this just show if they get Angeli, they're shifting more funds to the QB room?
Potentially. I think it also means that despite the fact that you've got the Trevor Pena situation and the comments that Fran Brown made, and despite the fact that Morad Watson, you would think that's NIL related, even though we haven't heard direct comments on that. Even despite those situations, it tells you that Syracuse is still in a healthy position from an NIL standpoint. I mean, they just landed the Louisville offensive lineman recently, and he was their highest graded pass blocking lineman this past season.
Austin Collins, yep.
Yeah, so he started 14 games over the last 2 years. They've also got a wide receiver who is a former elite level recruit that was at Texas and then transferred to Washington, I believe, in December. Mm-hmm. And he's up here visiting as well. There have been rumors that they're involved with Marcus Easley, who was, again, another elite recruit who's got 4 years of eligibility left, an interior offensive lineman that was at Georgia. So there's been rumors that they're involved with Hakeem Williams, again, another elite-level recruit who was at Florida State. So they're not getting a lot of these guys and getting interest from these guys if the NIL situation is not good. So despite the fact that the losing Pena and losing Morad Watson may look on its face like, Syracuse could be in a bad situation NIL-wise, I think what you're seeing them attract from a transfer portal perspective as transfer portal additions tells you that that's not the case. There might just be numbers at certain positions they're unwilling to go to.
And that's kind of how Fran laid it out there, wideout last week when talking about Trevor. Jonte Cook's the wideout that was at Texas. That he was at Washington for like a day. I don't know, a very weird stop there. And Marcus Easley, Georgia lineman. Both have had some law issues of late, with both having been arrested for various things during this semester. So we'll see how that all plays out. How about Morad Watson? So this news came down right before the show on Friday, so I was kind of taking it in live, and I'm like, man, in many ways, this feels, for the actual football of it, like a bigger loss than Pena. How do you view that when you look at a guy that currently at 24/7 is the top ranked available guy in the portal, and for a freshman playing that much at D tackle, I thought he handled himself very well last year.
Completely agree. And I said the same thing when I saw the news is I said, man, he was the one guy that I was hoping wouldn't get poached by a school that's, trying to throw an NIL bag at him. And again, we don't know that that's the case or not. But, that was kind of the one guy that, especially along the defensive line, that you were just hoping everything would work out and he'd stay because he's going to play a ton. He played a ton last year. Whether or not he actually starts, who knows? But he was certainly going to play a ton, was certainly in their future plans. True freshman All-American, just, really good player. And it's hard to attract those guys at defensive tackle that are that good, that early, at that size. And so the fact that they are losing him is I think, the biggest transfer portal departure for Syracuse football this offseason. But, the good thing is, they brought in a guy like Chris Thomas, and they've got a couple of guys back from injury, so you're hoping that between that, you'll be able to make up for losing them. But there's no question that that's a blow.
Yeah, Tank Wilson back for another year. As you said, he got an extra year with the medical red shirt from last season. But, yeah, it just feels like that's a harder randomly, right? That's almost a harder position for Syracuse to replace than quarterback. Go figure this go around.
Yeah, it is. It's, certain positions outside of quarterback are in such high demand, and that's one of them. Similar to a center in basketball, that a center in basketball is like the most coveted position that oftentimes schools will overpay for players relative to what their actual ability is. And it's similar here. Now, he's going to get probably, quote-unquote, overpaid by someone, but he's really good, and he's still got 3 years of eligibility left, and he's probably a future pro. Mm-hmm. So teams are going to throw money at that for sure. And one of the, I know there's been some conversations around spring ball, and is this, do you want to have spring ball? Do you not want to have a spring game and all that type of stuff? What is also happening is teams go through spring ball, say we have these roster issues, we need these positions shored up, and they start looking at other teams' rosters and say, who can we throw money at to get them to go into the portal? And I know the tampering's not supposed to happen. We all know that it is. It's almost impossible to prove that it is, but that's the kind of thing that's happening is teams find this is where our weakness is. That guy would help make our weakness a strength, or at least minimize the weakness. Let's see if we can indirectly talk to him and throw money at him to see if he'll come here.
No, we know Fran's going to come for you if there's been tampering, so we can do that. And Tennessee, Georgia, Ohio State, and Texas, just 4 schools that have been tangentially linked to Watson so far. If you want to toss out some schools that have a habit of showing up in the college football playoff. I want to get back to Angeli as we got Mike McAllister with us. So there's a lot of ties, right? His high school coach is Nunzio Campanelli's brother, Vito Bergen Catholic, the whole Jersey thing. How much do you think, obviously that plays into it, because there's got to be a lot of, institutional knowledge on Syracuse's part about Steve Angeli right now.
Yeah, on both sides. I think it makes a lot of sense because not only is there knowledge from Syracuse's side, so they wouldn't be taking him or bringing him up on a visit to potentially get him if they didn't think that he was really good and capable of making their quarterback room better. On the flip side, Angeli has a comfort level with the Campanellis and Fran Brown's connection to Florida and all of that. So, or a connection to New Jersey, I should say. So, because of all of that familiarity, both sides kind of know where the other one is, and they can kind of see a fit there, which is why this makes sense. It's just, the complication is that Syracuse had declared Ricky Collins a starter. Mm-hmm. You figure that Angeli wants to be a starter wherever he goes. But again, that declaration was made before a guy like Angeli became on the market. So, there's still some, I think, details that they'll work on behind the scenes.
Do you think, if there's any way that happens quickly, and again, who knows, would you be surprised at all if any of the Orange quarterbacks get in the portal before Friday if he happens to sign up?
I mean, nothing would surprise me, right? If Syracuse gets Angeli and then Jakari Williams says, well, now I'm bumped down to third, so there's no chance I'm getting on the field anytime soon, so I'm going to bolt. Or, Ricky says, wait a minute, I was supposed to be the guy. Now they're bringing in a guy who could take my job. Do I really want to stick around for this? But at the same time, if you have a quarterback competition between Angeli and Collins, you go into the fall, you battle it out. If Collins doesn't win it and Angeli does, and Collins says, I really do want to play, then, after the season, you bolt. Now, the problem is at that point, you've lost another year of eligibility. So there's a lot of factors to take in here. I think if you're Syracuse, it almost might be better if he waited till Saturday to sign everything, because then everything's closed and nobody else can go in. Now, I don't know that Syracuse is going to do that intentionally and then have it drag on just, to sort of trap a couple of guys. But, just from a perfect world, then you don't have to worry about trying to go out and grab another quarterback from the portal. That might be best case scenario.
Yeah, I know other schools would operate like that. It doesn't quite feel like how Fran Brown goes about
I agree.
His life. This just in from one of your colleagues, Matt Zenitz at 24/7. Morad Watson is visiting Texas tomorrow, so there is that. That's picking up steam quickly, so we'll see how that all plays out. Last thought on football here, Mike, before we get you moving. They still haven't ruled on this House case, which would have the 105-player roster limit. How have you noticed, Fran, there's still more freshmen coming in. Are they trying to move toward that? What's your sense of how they're trying to look at the whole roster that may get limited to 105 here before next season?
Yeah, all of their actions seem to indicate that they're going towards that with the 105 scholarship players, but I don't know that anyone has specifically officially commented on that on the record. So I don't have any official information on that front, but their actions with how much they're bringing in from a scholarship standpoint would suggest that they're looking at that 105 limit, because if the 105 limit doesn't go through, then they have to be at 85 scholarships, and they're way over that, which means they got to get rid of a bunch of players.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like they would be in the business of, let's just take a bunch of players, and then after spring ball, we'll see how this House settlement plays out, and if we got to cut 20 people, we'll cut 20 people. It doesn't seem like that would be the most prudent way to approach it, and I don't get the impression that that's the way that they're operating.
No, might have a lot of one-year track athletes or something very peculiar going on around here if that goes down. All right, Mike, know you got to run. Thanks for the updates on crazy times here in the spring portal season.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it.
All right, there he is, our guy, Mike McAllister, who we acquired today in the transfer portal from Orange Nation. Yeah.